Some people do not grow up dreaming about a mansion. They grow up dreaming about a bedroom door that locks, a door nobody can open without asking, a room where your bag stays where you left it, a night where you do not fall asleep listening for footsteps. That is the part nobody tells you about rent. Rent is not just the price of housing. Rent is the price of being left alone. It decides who can interrupt you, how much noise your body has to survive, how far you live from opportunity, how much danger becomes normal, how much of your paycheck disappears before your future even begins. And the strange part is this: every rent level looks like an upgrade from the level below it, until you realize each one takes a different piece of you. At the bottom, rent takes your dignity. In the middle, it takes your income. Near the top, it takes your freedom. So if you have ever felt embarrassed by where you live, trapped by what you pay, or scared that one bad month could erase your whole life, this is not really a video about apartments. It is about the invisible class system hidden inside your address. And somewhere in these levels, you are going to recognize yourself. Level 1 is not paying rent. At least, that is what people call it. You live with parents, relatives, friends, a partner, or whoever has a spare couch and enough power over your life to remind you it is not really yours. People say you are lucky, and sometimes you are. This level can save you from the street. It can give you time to recover. It can let you start over when your bank account is almost nothing. But free rent is rarely free. You pay with silence. You lower your voice on phone calls. You hide packages. You explain why you came home late. You wait until everyone is asleep to feel like yourself. You pretend the comments do not hurt because technically, they are helping you. This is the level where you learn that shelter and peace are not the same thing. You may have a bed, but you do not have authority. You may have a roof, but you do not have privacy. You may have food in the kitchen, but you still feel like a guest in your own life. One argument can change the whole atmosphere. One breakup can change your address. One family conflict can turn your shelter into a courtroom. And the cruel thing is that outsiders only see the money you save. They do not see the emotional rent. They do not see you swallowing opinions. They do not see you smiling at rules you hate. They do not see how strange it feels to be both safe and powerless. If you have ever lived somewhere you were technically allowed to sleep, but not fully allowed to exist, you know this level. At first you tell yourself it is temporary. You are being smart. You are saving money. You are building. But after a while the goal changes. You stop dreaming about luxury. You start dreaming about not being watched. That is how you reach for level 2. Not because it is financially perfect. Because you want one basic adult pleasure. A life nobody can interrupt. Level 2 is the rented room. One bedroom, shared bathroom, shared kitchen, shared noise, shared tension. You finally have a door. But you still do not have a home. Your whole life fits inside one rectangle. Your bed is your couch. Your desk is your dining room. Your suitcase becomes storage. Your groceries have to survive other people's hunger, habits, and moods. You know the exact sound of your roommate's footsteps. You know which cabinet door slams. You know when someone is angry before they say a word. At this level, privacy becomes a luxury product. You do not relax. You retreat. You eat dinner on your bed because the kitchen feels political. You wait for the hallway to go quiet before leaving the room. You become cleaner than you naturally are, quieter than you want to be, and smaller than you should have to be. Not because you are weak, because shared housing turns basic existence into negotiation. But this level is powerful because it gives you your first taste of independence. You can close the door. You can choose your own bedtime. You can come home without reporting to anyone. You can put your bag on the floor and think for 1 second, this space is mine. That taste can change you. Once you experience even a small amount of control, going backward feels impossible. But the freedom is fragile. One bad roommate can poison the room. One rent increase can erase the progress. One landlord message can make your stomach drop before you even open it. This is the level where you are technically independent, but emotionally still negotiating for space. And if you have ever waited to use the kitchen because another person's mood was in there, write that level number in your head. Because this is where many people first learn that peace is not silence. Peace is not having to calculate other people before you move. Eventually, the question starts growing inside you. What would it feel like to have your own kitchen, your own bathroom, your own mess, your own silence, that is when level 3 starts looking like freedom. Level 3 is the cheap apartment. This is the first time you get your own key, your own bills, your own silence. On paper, it looks like adulthood. In your body, it feels like survival with walls. The rent is low because something else is high. The crime, the noise, the commute, the mold, the distance, the broken elevator, the neighbor screaming at 2 in the morning, the landlord who fixes nothing unless you beg. Cheap rent is never just cheap. Most of the time, it means someone moved the real cost into your nervous system. You save money, but you spend attention. You save rent, but you lose recovery. You save dollars, but your body stays alert. This is the level where you become very good at pretending things are normal. It is not that bad. At least it is mine. I just need to save money for a while. Other people have it worse. And maybe all of that is true. Maybe this apartment is the bridge that lets you climb. Maybe it is the only reason your budget can breathe. Maybe without this ugly little place, everything falls apart. But every bridge has a weight limit. After months of bad sleep, long commutes, thin walls, bad lighting, and small daily stress, your body starts charging interest. You become more irritable, less ambitious, less patient, less social, less rested than your life requires you to be. You stop inviting people over because explaining your living situation feels heavier than cleaning it. You stop buying things for the apartment because you do not want to emotionally commit to a place you are trying to escape. You stop dreaming inside it because the apartment was never built for dreaming. It was built for endurance, and that is the hidden danger. Cheap rent can protect your budget while quietly shrinking your standards. At first, you are grateful for anything. Then anything becomes normal. Then normal becomes your limit. This level creates one of the strongest comment sections because everyone has a version of this apartment, the place that saved them and damaged them a little at the same time. But eventually, you want to come home without bracing. You want a building where every sound is not a warning. You want an apartment that does not make you feel punished for being broke. That is when level 4 starts calling. Level 4 teaches you a painful truth. Sometimes the hardest cage to see is the one everyone congratulates you for entering. The commute is survivable. The neighbors mostly mind their business. The appliances work. The room gets real light in the morning. For the first time, your home does not feel like another problem to solve. It feels like a base. This is the level where life starts looking stable from the outside. You invite people over without apologizing. You buy furniture that is not temporary. You stop saying, "I will replace it when I move." You start imagining a version of yourself who is finally becoming normal. And that is exactly why this level is so seductive. Because after chaos, normal feels like luxury. But now rent is no longer just shelter. It becomes proof that you are doing better. Proof that you are responsible. Proof that you escaped the earlier levels. Proof that your life is finally becoming acceptable to other people. And proof is expensive. You start paying not only for the apartment, but for the identity attached to it. You cannot move backward without feeling like you failed. You cannot choose cheaper without feeling embarrassed. You cannot admit the rent feels heavy because everyone thinks you are finally doing fine. This is where many people get trapped. Not by poverty, by the performance of stability. You are not starving. You are not unsafe. You are not desperate enough for anyone to worry. But you are not free either. You are one emergency away from remembering how thin the floor still is. And if this level feels familiar, you know the strange pressure of being too stable to complain and too stretched to breathe. That is a very lonely place. Then comes level 5, the lifestyle apartment. This is where rent stops being just where you live. It becomes who you are trying to become. You move closer to the restaurants, the gym, the safer streets, the better schools, the cleaner sidewalks, the prettier coffee shops, the people who look like they figured something out. Your apartment does not just hold your life anymore. It markets your life back to you. The lobby smells clean. The lighting is warm. The neighborhood makes you walk differently. You come home and your body does not immediately prepare for conflict. And honestly, this upgrade can be real. Better rent can change your habits. You sleep better. You walk more. You meet different people. You stop wasting energy on survival. For the first time, your environment is not fighting you. It is supporting the person you are trying to become. That is why judging people for paying more rent is too simple. Sometimes higher rent buys time. Sometimes it buys safety. Sometimes it buys access. Sometimes it buys the version of yourself that could never grow in constant noise. But the cost is dependency. Once your nervous system learns comfort, discomfort feels insulting. Once you taste safety, chaos becomes harder to tolerate. Once your friends know where you live, your address becomes part of your identity. At first, you upgrade because you can afford it. Then you keep affording it because downgrading feels like losing yourself. You start making decisions around the apartment. You stay in a job you dislike because the rent expects consistency. You delay risks because the lease expects obedience. You say no to adventure because the building is too expensive for uncertainty. And the question changes. You are no longer asking, "Can I pay rent?" You are asking, "How much of myself am I willing to trade to keep feeling like this person?" That is the lifestyle trap. It does not feel like a trap at first. It feels like becoming. Level 6 is the status apartment. The view is better. The elevator is quieter. The countertops have names you never cared about before. The bathroom lighting makes your old place feel like a memory from another life. People react differently when they visit. They pause. They look around. They say, "Wow." And for a moment, that wow feels like repayment for everything you survived. This is not just housing anymore. This is a trophy with plumbing. It tells the world you made it far enough to be seen differently. You are not just renting space. You are renting a signal, a sentence without words. I am not where I used to be. I am not who you thought I was. I made it out, but visibility is never free. At this level, your home can become a stage. You clean before people arrive because you need the apartment to confirm the story. You post a corner of the room because that corner says what you are too embarrassed to say directly. You measure your progress through other people's reactions. And status rent has a cruel rule. The more impressive your life looks, the harder it becomes to confess pressure. Nobody wants to hear someone in a beautiful apartment say they feel trapped. Nobody claps for expensive stress. So you keep paying. You keep smiling. You keep the image alive. And privately, you start calculating how many paychecks stand between you and collapse. This is the level where the comments section splits in half. Some people say, "I would never pay that much." Other people say, "You do not understand what it means to finally feel far from where you started." Both are right. That is what makes this level dangerous. It is not only about money. It is about memory. Sometimes people do not rent the expensive apartment because they need the space. They rent it because they need proof that the old life is really behind them. And proof can become addictive. Level 7 is the luxury rent that looks like freedom from the outside and captivity from the inside. The apartment is beautiful. The neighborhood is elite. The windows are huge. The building is quiet enough to hear your own anxiety. You have space now. Real space. Maybe more space than you need. But somehow, the silence is not peace. It is pressure. Because the rent is so high that your life must keep performing at a certain level just to remain inside it. One job loss is not an inconvenience anymore. It is exile. One bad quarter is not stress anymore. It is threat. One failed business decision is not a lesson anymore. It is a countdown. This is the level where the upgrade reveals its contract. You cannot easily rest because the rent is waiting. You cannot easily quit because the lease is waiting. You cannot easily take risks because the lifestyle is waiting. The place that was supposed to prove you are free now requires you to keep earning like someone who cannot stop. And this is the reversal most people miss. Low rent can trap you in discomfort. High rent can trap you in obligation. Different cage, better lighting. At the lower levels, the fear is, can I get out? At the higher levels, the fear becomes, can I afford to stay? The second fear can be even more dangerous because it wears better clothes. Then there is the level everyone fantasizes about. No rent, a paid-off home, family property, covered housing, a financial cushion big enough that rent no longer controls your breathing. The monthly panic is gone. And yes, this changes everything. Your shoulders drop. Your decisions slow down. You stop treating every small emergency like a threat to your existence. You are no longer working just to maintain an address. For the first time, your home feels less like a bill and more like ground beneath your feet. This is what most people are actually chasing. Not luxury, not marble countertops, not skyline views. They are chasing the ability to wake up without owing the day their fear. But even this level has a hidden truth. Rent-free does not automatically mean fear-free. Some people own homes and are still emotionally homeless. Some people have paid-off houses but no peace inside them. Some people escape rent and discover the real landlord was never the apartment. It was anxiety. It was childhood. It was shame. It was the belief that safety can disappear at any moment. Money can remove the monthly bill. It cannot instantly remove the person you became while surviving it. You may no longer pay rent to a landlord, but you may still pay rent to old fear. You may still ask permission to rest. You may still feel guilty for taking space. You may still live like someone is about to take the room away. So your life at every level of rent is not really a story about apartments. It is a story about power. Who controls your space? Who controls your time? Who gets to interrupt your peace? How much of your income must disappear before you are allowed to feel safe? At the bottom, you trade dignity for shelter. In the middle, you trade income for stability. Near the top, you trade freedom for status. And at the highest level, you may finally learn the thing nobody tells you when you are desperate to move up. The goal is not the biggest apartment. The goal is to stop living like your home can be taken from you at any moment. Because the most dangerous rent level is not always the cheapest one. It is the one that convinces you to build your identity around keeping it. The one that makes you confuse your address with your worth. The one that makes you stay in jobs, relationships, cities, and versions of yourself you no longer want, just because the walls are nice. So here is the real question. Which level are you living in right now? Not the rent amount. The emotional level. Are you paying with silence, with sleep, with income, with status, with freedom, or with fear? Because maybe the final level of rent is not paying zero, not living high, not impressing anyone. Maybe the final level is much quieter than that. A place where your body no longer flinches at footsteps. A room where you do not have to earn permission to exist. A home that is not a performance, not a threat, not a cage with better lighting. Just a place where your body finally believes it is allowed to rest.